Sounds awesome.
Good evening and welcome to Athens City Council. It's Monday, September 21st at 7 p.m. and we are in regular session tonight. Our first item of business is establishing a quorum, and all members of council are present. Next item of business is disposition of the minutes for the regular session of City Council that was held on September 8th, 2020. If I could have a motion for approving those minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Reisner, seconded by Councilmember Katsas. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Okay, the minutes have been approved. Next, we have communications. I do know of one item that we were informed by Chief Tom Pyle that the 24-hour parking enforcement is now activated again. So that became effective today. So that just so citizens know that they do need to move their cars every 24 hours unless they're in one of those special permit zones. Are there other communications? Councilmember Reisner.
Yes, I received a communication from a citizen over the weekend concerning a trick-or-treat beggars night here in Athens. I informed the constituent at that time that I did not know what the city's plans were officially, so I asked the mayor if he could inform the public what is going to happen or not happen.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Isley. I just would like to make sure that everyone and the public knows that it is Pollution Prevention Week, and the City of Athens and Ohio University and the Athens Soil and Water Conservation District have all teamed together to recognize Pollution Prevention Week. We focus on stormwater, and there are groups of Ohio University students socially distanced marking storm drains to remind everyone that those storm drains do flow to the Hocking River. It's not a place for anything but rainwater. Also, as part of this will be a jellyfish garden art installation run by Campus Recycling and Zero Waste at Ohio University, which will bring attention to plastic bag reduction and pollution. And then on Wednesday evening will be the Sustainability Film Series. And there will be a virtual showing of the film Mossville with a panel following, all done online. Thank you.
Okay, great to know about that. Good. Other communications? All right. If not, then we'll move on to reports and communications from other elected officials. Law Director Eliason.
No report.
Okay. Auditor Hecht. Okay. No report. And then Mayor Patterson.
Thank you, President Nisley. I have several communications to report to council, starting first with the 2020 street improvements schedule. This week, you may have noticed or not that there is milling and paving occurring on Pomeroy between Longview Heights and Richland Avenue. There will also be work being done on Playground Drive between Mill Street and Kurtz Street. And two-way traffic will be maintained as usual during that milling and paving. The next item is that I received an email today from Glenn Crippen, who's the Director of Housing and Community Development at HAPCAP, Hocking Athens Perry Community Action. And it was basically indicating that the 2020 Community Housing Impact and Preservation Program, fondly known as CHIP, that it was funded. And so we will see more in the CHIP world coming up in the beginning of the year of 2021. My third item is I think it's a good idea to at least inform the public, those who are watching tonight, that Ohio University has been working with CVS Pharmacy to get 10,000 tests, COVID-19 tests. And starting, I believe it's next week, they will begin testing about 200 asymptomatic individuals a week as they move forward. So it's a good thing that they're going to be doing more testing. I also am sharing that because when you start doing more testing, especially within the age group that they're going to be doing testing, that we could see a rise in cases here in the city of Athens. We've already seen a rise. Today we saw a rise of 19 new cases. We haven't seen a rise like that since July. I do feel it's important to also share that, a week or two into July, we did see, cases on the magnitude of 28 cases. And so our positive cases, when I look at that in reference to now, the climb is not as steep as it was in July, yet it is going up. So I want everyone to be aware of that. The last thing, as Councilmember Reisner had just indicated, was that we did have a conversation. He informed me of individuals asking about the neighborhood trick-or-treating. And since that time, the Ohio Department of Health has come out with guidelines for trick-or-treating. I want to just share some of them with council and for the listening audience, watching audience tonight. It is strongly recommended that hay rides and haunted houses are canceled or avoided. It is strongly recommended that Ohioans exercise caution when deciding to participate in trick-or-treating events that put them in close contact with people outside their own households. To lower that risk, consider safer, socially distanced ways of celebrating, such as holding drive-through or drive-in trick-or-treat events with children in costumes and face coverings, staying in cars and collecting treats from individuals spaced 6 feet apart, holding drive-by costume or car decorating contests with judges who are physically distanced, holding treats, leaving treats for friends and neighbors, and it goes on and on and on. I will hopefully get this to, or will get this to Scott Thompson to put up on the city's website, because I think this is good. Some of the things that will not be happening during Halloween this year is that there will not be a Halloween block party in which there are stages, music, and other events going on Court Street. Council hasn't authorized for any of those things to take place because you haven't passed any ordinances, obviously, for that. But I think that's good for people to hear and understand. The other thing that will not be happening this year is the Uptown Business Association under the Chamber of Commerce has decided that they will not be having the trick-or-treating on Court Street this year. And so that won't be happening either. In terms of trick-or-treating in the neighborhoods, again, the city has never really taken a position with when trick-or-treating does take place in the neighborhoods. And therefore, as long as people are being cognizant of being responsible and safe, again, separating themselves, 6 feet separation, no groups greater of 10 or more gathering, that's a decision, I believe, for individuals living in neighborhoods to decide on their own. Councilmember Clodfelter.
I agree with you in principle. That sounds like a good kind of freedom sort of thing to share with the city, but I live in the Near East Side and we get huge numbers of trick-or-treaters. Vans come in full of children with kids that don't even live in town. And just to give you an example, and I'm far from alone in this, but last year I bought 450 individual pieces of candy. I gave those out in 25 minutes. I was giving one per child. I'm worried about the Near East Side because we just get huge numbers of people, and unless people just, I guess people could just not offer candy, but a lot of people love doing that. I'm just a little concerned about the possibility of COVID spreading on the Near East Side if there is trick or treating there.
But just bear in mind, these are private properties, and someone on their private property can choose what they want to do. I don't disagree with anything that you've said, because I typically, in a no COVID timeframe, take my own children into your neighborhood. I understand. I personally would encourage people not to distribute candy on, Halloween or whatever. But again, it typically, other than the city weighing in on the date to have Beggars Night or trick-or-treating, the city doesn't really dictate what happens in the neighborhoods when it comes to people doling out candy.
And tell you what, let's have one more comment. I know Councilmember Fall has something she wants to say. And then if we want to have additional conversation, if you think that would merit further discussion at a committee meeting night, Mayor Patterson, we'd be more than happy to do that. I'm sure it's going to be a continuing discussion with lots of ideas brought up. Councilmember Fall, you had one.
Thank you. Right. Well, it's more of a point is that the mask mandate would probably really be super important then for people to follow if they were out doing that. And so there's that. And though I do think that people need to really seriously think about this. And maybe some different types of ideas. I put candy out at my foot of my stairs because nobody wants to walk up 50 stairs to get to my spooky house. So maybe things like that. So thank you.
Great. Thanks for the suggestions. All right. We'll move on now to ordinances. Oh, and Mayor Patterson, was that the end of your report?
Thank you, President Isley. That is.
Okay, thanks. All right, we'll move on now to ordinances for third reading. 9420 is an ordinance rezoning 42 Elliott Street, 20, 21, and 25 Campbell Street, and the abandoned railroad right-of-way from a B3 zone, business, to an M industrial zone. And this is introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. I move that we adopt ordinance 9420.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Grace.
Thank you. We've talked about this several times. It has been discussed also in the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission forwarded their recommendations. There's been a public hearing on this. This will help to expand our manufacturing zones so that we can diversify the economy. And so that's a really good thing. And so this is something that's been moving along, and now it's on third reading. So thank you. I also want to say thank you to the administration, because these things take a lot of follow through. They have a lot of check marks that you have to do. So thank you.
Okay. So we have a motion and second. Are there any comments or questions from council members or administration? Councilmember Clodfelter.
I again strongly support this proposed ordinance. I think as the enrollment at Ohio University declines, that Athens as a city just has to find more and more ways to diversify the economy. So making it easier for our current manufacturing companies to expand, or making part of our town more attractive as a way to bring in another manufacturing company someday is just an excellent idea. And I'm glad that Member Fall has proposed this.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Katsas.
Yes, President Nisley, thank you, and thank you, administration. I also hope that that there are other, I'm sure that we're also looking at other areas in the city to wonder whether or not they are being used to their maximum ability. So, I know that this is a big step forward, but I also know that after one big step, there are many more that we can take, and I'm excited to see what the future brings.
Okay, Councilmember Fall. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, that it's like foreboding, right? There is the comprehensive plan that will be coming through council more soonish than laterish. So there is that. And we have been looking at a lot of those things of looking at infilling and those sort of things through this whole plan process. So that's something that we'll talk more about because that's something that is really important to the economy and stuff. So thank you.
Okay. If no other comments or questions, and I just want to do one double check to make sure we don't have anything in the chat. I don't see any questions in the chat. Okay. All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Okay, the motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 9520 is an ordinance amending the Athens City Code Title 29, Housing Regulations, Chapter 29.02, Division of Housing Inspection, and is introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. I move that we adopt 9520.
Second.
Thank you.
Second from Councilmember Clodfelter.
Right. This was put forward as a change in our zoning. So by our insurance provider, it's best management practices for looking at inspections and how inspections proceed and what other impacts that have been lately on that inspection process. Thank you.
Okay. So we have a motion and second for approval of this. Any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 9620 is an ordinance granting a special right-of-way permit to Robert and Lois Whaley, owners of 100 to 102 Mill Street, to allow a fence. Introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. I move that we adopt 9620.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Grace.
Thank you. This is a straightforward right-of-way permitting process to build a fence for them. Thank you.
Okay. Comments or questions? Okay. Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, the motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 9820 is an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to execute a temporary easement and right-of-way agreement with the Ohio Power Company, AEP, for installation of electrical equipment at the water treatment plant. This is introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. I move that we adopt 9820.
Second.
Thank you.
Second by Councilmember Clodfelter.
Great. This is really exciting. It's a right away so the AEP could install their microgrid experiment at our water treatment plant, which is awesome, really cool, and cutting edge. So this is another one of those things that takes a long time to bring to council and to be able to go forward with it. It takes a lot of partnerships and a lot of like stewarding along, and the administration has done a great job. And we, from my point of view, is it being still a climate, emergency this year, it's just exactly what we should be doing. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and second, and any comments or questions? I think Mayor Patterson, you had a comment.
I do. Just to kind of echo what Councilmember Fall just said, this is a project that we had been working through and working with AEP since midsummer of last year, of 2019. And so it's been a slow process, but we are one of two sites in the state of Ohio, the other site being the Columbus Zoo. So not to compare us to the Columbus Zoo, but we just had the assets in place that made it easy for AEP to explore whether our site should be selected. Thank you.
And Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Isley. I just wanted to say that all the improvements to the water treatment plant over the last few years led by the administration have been terrific. Really pleased about the solar panels on the site. And this is just another, cutting edge, as Member Fall said, addition to the water treatment plant. The director of the water treatment plant, Sean Beasley, has been very open to talking about the plant to students that I work with at Ohio University, and we really appreciate his efforts. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. If no other comments or questions, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, the motion carries and the ordinance is approved. We'll now move on to ordinances for first reading. And this has maybe the longest title that we've had in quite a while, so sit back and relax. This is Ordinance 10320. This is an ordinance authorizing the creation of the University Estates Incentive District within the city of Athens, declaring improvements to certain real property within such incentive district to be a public purpose, describing the public infrastructure improvements to be made to benefit or serve the real property within such incentive district, requiring annual service payments in lieu of taxes, creating a municipal public improvement tax increment equivalent fund for the deposit of such service payments, and authorizing the execution of a tax increment financing agreement with the property owners in such incentive district. And this is introduced by Councilmember Fall, who can explain it all with ease.
Hi again. This is a TIF, a tax increment financing. We do a TIF on East State Street. It helps to pay for further infrastructure enhancements from the enhancements they've already made, kind of a pay it forward sort of process. This particular one is one with a private developer who's doing housing. This comes out also from our Affordable Housing Commission report that they put in a couple before COVID time. So it fulfills one of those things. It's a tax way to be able to make this sort of development much more affordable over a longer period of time. The development in question is 50 units. They will be deed restricted for be homeowner occupied, and they will be universally designed and in the affordable housing range. So Sarah's also been super active on this. So I want to really say thank you. This is an example of when our commissions and they put forward information and suggestions for the council to do. This is what we do. So we really appreciate it. So Sarah.
Thank you, Member Fall. And we actually just discussed this today in our Affordable Housing Commission meeting. And it's really exciting when we know that this is something that members of council and members of the community, members of our university community, and the city administration have all been working together on for a long time. And it's exciting when we see tangible progress being made on a project like this. And I think there's a lot of great plans that we're going to be seeing more and more of for this development. And our developers are really willing to engage with the city and discuss what is being asked from the Affordable Housing Commission in terms of pricing and also accessibility issues, and making sure that the new units being built will really serve a population that needs access to these housing units. And so where we have first floor masters with accessible bathrooms, wide hallways, zero grade entries, and as well as being very mindful of energy efficiency standards. And so this is a great step forward. And thank you, Member Fall, for introducing the ordinance. And thanks to former council member Michelle Pappy for the work that she did when she was here on council and in the housing task force.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions or anything?
Councilmember Smedley.
Thank you, President Isley. I just wanted to express appreciation for the inclusion of the map, which was requested during committee and was provided for us to review for this week. And appreciate all the efforts behind this project. It's innovative, and hopefully it has the outcome that we're hoping it will have. Thanks.
And Council Member Clodfelter?
I wondered if, I love this idea. I'm so glad we're doing this. I think it's essential that we have more affordable housing in our community. So I'm completely in support of this. But I wondered if you could just clarify one aspect of it, largely for the public. And that is the mention of the corporation being able to provide service in lieu of taxes. Could you just explain that a little bit more? Or maybe I didn't hear it correctly.
Okay. A tax increment financing means that the amount of taxes that they get above what they have now with like bare ground, the increment that is there because of all the infrastructure that they developed, that increment goes back to financing and funding more infrastructure for that development. So they're using not the base, all the people who get the same base, but they're using that increment to enhance and go forward with better development and more infrastructure that helps them pay off some of the debt they took out for doing the infrastructure and stuff. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
No. The mayor can further.
Auditor Hecht and then Mayor Patterson.
Well, maybe the mayor should just go first, but I was just going to expand on what Chris was just saying. She's exactly right. With an example that might help people, we have a TIF on East State Street with all the development from, Walmart on. There was nothing but old landing strips out there. It was bare grounds. So all of the improvements, as Chris said, in this case, it will be housing, will you pay taxes on the improvements on your property also. And so instead of paying that to the county and into the regular income tax fund, it will go into a TIF fund. And that money on East State Street, we use that the taxes from the improvements to pay for the road widening and the water and sewer and all the other infrastructure we had to put in down there because there was no development on that property. In the residential area, we are using that money to help the developer to make it worth his while to build low-income housing for us down there. And as I said, the mayor can probably add more to that, but that's kind of an example of that extra tax, and it's really the city's tax money, but that's how we're using it.
Mayor Patterson.
Auditor Hecht, you nailed it. I mean, in terms of the TIF, and this is different than the East State Street TIF in that TIF is 100% capture to where 100% of that increase in property valuation goes into our street improvement for that asset in the city. This, on the other hand, I believe it's 70%, meaning the
75.
remaining 75. The remaining 25% is distributed to those who would typically receive that property tax, which in some cases would pretty much fit with what that property is valued at now, as just being green space with no infrastructure on it, no streets, no houses, no anything. And then at the end of a 10-year period of time, those who typically get the distribution, the allocation from the property taxes in that area will be made whole. They'll be receiving the full valuation of those property taxes, the school district, other entities that receive that money. So that's a real upside. And as Auditor Hecht just indicated, one of the things that's getting in the way of people developing housing projects in the city of Athens, especially land that is not developed, in other words, has no infrastructure in place, no street, no sewer, no water, no storm, it doesn't pencil out for developers to go in and try to build and have to build the street infrastructure. So this makes it basically clears the path, no pun intended, for the developer to start putting those assets in place and to build houses and make it affordable for them We view that this is a good model because we know there's other developable land that has no city infrastructure on it. So hopefully this will go well, that we can continue to get other developers to come in and complete some housing tracts that have already gone through the PUD process but are just sitting there.
Okay. All right.
Great.
Thank you. Thanks for all the comments. We'll now move on to Ordinance 10420. This is an ordinance amending Athens City Code, Title 23, Zoning Code to include solar energy systems, introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Hi there again. This is another notch in our awesome things that we are doing for our climate emergency. This had gone through the Planning Commission and the Sustainability Commission, so it's a new model for us. Hopefully a lot more things will be coming through those two commissions as they work together on further projects. Basically, this introduces a right to solar in the city of Athens, pretty much. It helps us go from a bronze designation in SolSmart to a silver designation in SolSmart, which is another thing that the Sustainability Commission has wanted to do. Questions or comments? Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Clodfelter, yes.
I'd just like to say that I think this is just another good way that we are helping to make the city more sustainable. And I'm so glad that Member Fall is leading this effort to make it easier for people to get solar panels on their homes or their businesses.
Okay. Thank you. We'll now move on to Ordinance 10520. This is an ordinance designating Siemens Grocery, located at 305 West Union Street, as a local historic designation, introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. Last week, I think we had a really good discussion about what it means to use these historic pieces of property or historic districts with the next ordinance to be able to leverage other sorts of economic development. So we're respecting the piece of property with the development area, 10 acres of that area around that historic piece building is then in a special development zone, which has a lot of different benefits with it, with different financing and tax credits and loan credits and those sort of things. So it's like the best of both worlds. In this example, we are honoring Siemens, which is everybody loves Siemens. It is a stalwart that has been there forever. And then the 10 acres around there will be leveraged through this process. So thank you. Any questions?
Okay. Move on to Ordinance 10620. This is an ordinance designating the Athens Downtown Historic District as a local historic designation and is introduced by Councilmember Fall.
Thank you. These last two ordinances came out from the Historic Commission, our people who work so incredibly hard to do these sort of in-depth, detailed applications that these require. So I want to say a huge shout out to the people who have been doing this through a volunteer effort. The specific one is to designate the uptown area as a local historic district. That will give us more local control over different types of development that will go down there when they go through the Title 41 process. It helps for local control and local processes as opposed to what the U.S. historic designation or a state historic designation does not do. So, questions or issues? Thank you.
Councilmember Smedley.
Thanks, President Nisley. And thanks, Member Fall. Curious if the Uptown Business Association has had any involvement with this and if they had any feedback.
Yes. They've been involved through the whole process. as a different partner. And I think that also stems out, a lot of this discussion stems out of what happened on West Union Street when they were going through the different types of buildings, some of the issues and questions that came out of there. And so it's a learning, we applied our learning from some of those discussions that we had. So.
And so the feedback was positive, I take it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
If no other comments or questions, we'll move on to ordinance 10720. Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
An ordinance amending the 2020 appropriation ordinance and authorizing the auditor to make interfund transfers, and is introduced by Councilmember Crowe.
Thank you, President Isley. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for 010720, as we need the interfund transfer in particular for the community center in order to meet our expenses.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Katsas. We have a motion and second for suspending the rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended, Councilmember Crowe.
Thank you, President Isley. I'd like to make a motion to adopt 010720.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Clodfelter.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and read these necessary appropriations and interfund transfers. Section 1, the 2020 Appropriation Ordinance 130-19 is hereby amended by appropriating from the unappropriated balance the following sums: $15,677 and 16 cents to CDBG Fund 248, transaction code 600 for transfer, $20,000 to APR Income Tax Fund 273, transaction code 600 for transfer, and $19,800 to Internal Service 865, and increasing the total appropriations by said amounts. Section 2, the 2020 Appropriation Ordinance is further amended as follows: decrease CDBG Fund 248, transaction code 300 by $15,677 and 16 cents, and increase CDBG Fund 248, transaction code 600 for transfer, and decreasing and increasing the total appropriations by said amount. I will just say that the CDBG fund transfers are really sort of an administrative action in order to meet requirements of the state auditor's office. And the transfer, the interfund transfer for the community center, as they continue to have payroll expenses and refunds that are not enough to cover their expenses. And this will be another addition to their budget to help them stay afloat. Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and second for approval of 10720. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. We'll move on to ordinance 10820. This is an ordinance amending ordinance 10120, approving the City of Athens COVID-19 City Utility Assistance Relief Program, Grant Program, and authorizing an agreement with Hocking Athens Perry Community Action, HAPCAP, to administer said program, introduced by Councilmember Crowe.
Thank you, President Isley. I would like to make a motion to suspend the rules for 10820, as this utility relief program is an immediate necessity for the citizens of Athens.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Clodfelter. We have a motion and second for suspending the rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. All right. The rules have been suspended, Councilmember Crowe.
Thank you, President Isley. I'd like to make a motion to approve 010820.
Second.
Second, Councilmember Reisner, second. Okay, so motion and second. Yeah, go ahead now, Councilmember Crowe.
Okay, thank you. We have discovered, actually HAPCAP our partner has discovered a change that needed to be made in the agreement that we had previously approved. Council and committee has discussed this change and approved it. And this ordinance simply corrects or edits that contract. I will quickly read section 1. Section 17, compensation of Exhibit A incorporated in section 2 of Ordinance 10120 is hereby amended to read as attached hereto and incorporation herein by reference. And I'll just quickly read that edited change, which is the grantor will compensate the grantee for administration services for project implementation based on actual expense not to exceed 7% of the total grant award or $5,250. This is again a utility relief program for the citizens of Athens related to the COVID pandemic, and I'm very pleased that the administration and the city council has been able to do this. Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and second for approval of this ordinance. Do we have any comments or questions? Councilmember Grace.
Thank you, President Isley. Yeah, as Member Crowell said, this is a really important measure for our citizens who may be struggling with paying their utility bills, and I'm so glad that we are able to approve this. I'm wondering if either Member Crowell or Mayor Patterson happen to know how quickly people might be able to apply. How soon will HAPCAP be ready to accept applications for this utility relief?
Yeah, I think the best example is how quickly HAPCAP was able to administer the mortgage and rent relief, which from the date that it was signed by myself and the president of council, I believe it was the following week. But since they have things in place, I'll work with HAPCAP to see if it could actually begin sooner, but a week at the most.
That's great to hear. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries and the ordinance is approved. We'll now move on to Ordinance 10920. This is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into or to extend the agreement with the Board of the Athens County Commissioners for the purpose of obtaining the services of the Public Defender's Office through December 31st, 2021, introduced by Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Nisley. I will go ahead and read through this ordinance for the first reading and tell you what I know about this issue. Section 1, the mayor is hereby authorized to enter into or to extend the agreement with the Board of Athens County Commissioners for the purpose of obtaining the services of the Public Defender's Office through December 31st, 2021. Section 2, the mayor is hereby authorized to expend up to $100,000 from the 2021 General Fund 101-106, Transaction Code 300 for said contract. This public defender contract is an annual agreement made slightly complicated by the different years that the City of Athens and the County of Athens and the State of Ohio use fiscal year versus calendar year for coming up with the appropriate amount to budget for this line item. We did discuss this in the mayor auditor's meeting and had a number of sharing of email information to try to determine what the best amount is for this line. And looking at the past history of the expenses, we felt that sticking with last year's budget of $100,000 was the wisest move for moving forward. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? All right. Thank you. We'll move on to Ordinance 11020. This is an ordinance providing for the issuance of $123,411 of notes by the City of Athens, Ohio. in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of renewing notes previously issued for the purpose of paying part of the costs of acquiring a new pumper truck and related equipment and declaring an emergency. Introduced by Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Isley. This is paying our bills. This is for, as President Isley mentioned, a new pumper truck, which is clearly an essential piece of equipment for the city of Athens. I'm not going to go through and read all of this ordinance. It is quite long, but I will say that the city, the university combined together to help pay for this pumper truck. And that is the total amount that we are paying off this year, is the combination between Ohio University and the city of Athens. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any other comments or questions? Councilmember Reisner.
Will the ordinance completely pay off the pumper truck this year, or will there be any residual for next year?
I think we can turn to the auditor for that, but I believe there is still some money to be paid next year. Is that right, Auditor Hecht?
I can go ahead and speak to it. Well, Kathy's looking for the unmute button. It will. We will still have a balance left on the pumper truck. I believe we've been slowly, chipping away at the cost of that pumper truck. I believe it was around $750,000. The university's contribution has been extremely helpful in getting that paid down, but there will still be a balance. Now that Kathy is unmuted, Kathy, let me.
Yeah, we have about $123,000 left on that. So if we're lucky next year, depending on how things are going, we might be able to pay it off finally.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Any other comments or questions? All right. If not, we'll move on to a resolution for second reading. This is R1220. The resolution accepting the amounts and rates is determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor. This is introduced by Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Isley. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for Resolution 1220.
Councilmember Grace seconds. Okay. And the reason being that...
The reason being that these rates and amounts need to get settled prior to October 5th, I believe, was the date I was given.
Right. Thank you. So all those in favor signify by suspending the rules, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended, Councilmember Crowell.
Thank you, President Isley. I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 1220.
Second.
Councilmember Smedley seconded. Okay.
Thank you. This resolution is, again, annual business of council. These amounts, these rates and amounts are set by the Budget Commission and come through the auditor's office. Auditor, would you like to give a more precise explanation of this?
Well, we have to do this every year. Council has to approve the rates that the county is setting so that we can collect our inside millage, which is the property taxes on properties within the city limits. The county collects property taxes, and this is a way for us to receive a percentage of the property tax paid on properties inside the city. Otherwise, as I said, the county collects property and sales tax, the city collects income tax. So this is, it is a fair amount of money that we get every year through this, about $800,000 or $900,000 for our share of the property taxes. And the millage refers to the townships, Athens and then Canaanville, of the percentage that we collect in those two townships. And it's a very complicated formula for them to calculate that millage, but it's not something that the county, auditor or commissioners just decide to do. It's a process that's in the law, and that's how we get our percentage.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Auditor Hecht. I appreciate you being here and providing your expertise. Thank you, President Isley.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Councilmember Reisner.
I just want to comment and make sure that people understand that the city needs these funds in order to do the road services and maintenance that the county no longer has to do because that area is now incorporated. So it's not like we're getting a big bonus here. We're taking the money and we're putting it back on the street and the bridges.
Good point. Thank you. All right. All those in favor, we have the motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries and the resolution is approved. We have about 4 or 5 other items under announcements and other business, the first of which is a motion to confirm the mayor's appointment to the Board of Zoning Appeals, which I believe Councilmember Smedley will be making.
Thank you, President Isley. Yes, I'd like to make a motion to reappoint Lisa Carson to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Second.
Thank
Okay,
you.
second by Councilmember Crowell.
Lisa Carson is a longtime member of the Board of Zoning Appeals. She's very active in the Athens Near North Side Neighborhood Association and is an assistant professor at OU. And from what I understand, serves the Board of Zoning Appeals very well.
Okay. Thank you. So we have a motion and second for the approval to reappoint Lisa Carson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Okay. So she's been duly reappointed and thanked by all of us for her service. That's a difficult board to serve on. So, but a lot of important work for the city. We now have a motion to confirm the mayor's reappointments to the Municipal Arts Commission by Councilmember Reisner.
Well, thank you, Madam President. I have a slate of 4 reappointments here. I'd like to read them off here. Josh Brenbaum, Secretary, Elizabeth Braun, Co-Chair, Carol Patterson, Chair, and Chelsea Morahan. All 4 are for 2 4-year terms. The first 3 that I mentioned will expire 11/2022, and Chelsea will expire 10/2022. So I'd like to make a motion that these 4 highly qualified individuals who I've been serving with the last year or so on the AMAC committee, they're very enthusiastic people. They are really committed to providing good art to the city of Athens, and they firmly believe that a great city has great art. So I would like to make a motion that all 4 be reappointed.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Clodfelter. Okay, we have a motion and second for the reappointment of these 4 members to the Municipal Arts Commission. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Okay, unanimously approved and thanked by all of us. We now have a motion to accept the August 2020 financial reports that the auditor has shared with council members.
So moved.
So moved by Councilmember Reisner, seconded by Councilmember Fall. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Okay, those reports are accepted. Second set of financials are the credit card transactions for August 2020. If I could have a motion for accepting those. Councilmember Fall, and seconded by Councilmember Grace. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Those have been accepted also. And do we have, I know we'll have committee meetings as part of our other announcements. We'll have committee meetings next week. I believe we have finance and personnel. I know we have a few items for that. And just a note that if we do have any other committees meeting to meet, that you notify the clerk of council by Wednesday. And do we know of any others at this point, whether they will be meeting or not? Okay. All right. Maybe I see a maybe from Chris Fall. Okay. Councilmember Fall. Any other announcements? Okay. And we now, as the last item, always important, have an opportunity for citizens to speak on legislative items and city services that have not been covered on the agenda. And I'm going to rely on our government channel staff just to do a double check for me. I can see part of the participants list, but I want to make sure. Has anybody indicated that they're wanting to speak for the 3 minutes? Okay. Okay, not seeing anyone. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Councilmember Smedley, seconded by Councilmember Fall. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, and I'll assume none opposed. So we are adjourned until next week at 7:56 p.m. We'll see you next
Thank
week.
you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank